All right. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Rob here with the Bestseller Secrets podcast. And today we're going to do something very deep and a little bit different. Some of you have seen some of the book funnel secret stuff that we've done in regards to some of the most successful funnels and book funnels in particular that influencers and very, very successful people are using. Well, I have with us today the secret weapon behind many of the biggest influencers in the space. This is Alisha Schenck. We're not going to talk about any specifics. You and I have talked about this ahead of time as far as like exact funnels that are running and that sort of thing, because that's client confidentiality. But this is something that you have done as an agency for a number of years, kind of quietly in the background, partnering with influencers and really blowing up their brands to the tune of 9 figures. Can you give us a couple of examples, in particular book funnels, that you've seen? Maybe give us the general field that they're in, like personal development or coaching or whatever it is, and then give us some of the results, and then maybe we'll take a look at one or two of them and kind of dive into some of the metrics, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, yeah, kind of like a broad overview. We've done more than $400 million in line, and we've been in all sorts of different niches, whether it's like e-com, products, books, supplements, coaching, consulting, course, legal, birth injury, working in all of the different niches, all of the different verticals have, it's enabled us to gain experience like in those different business models, so we can create, test, optimize, and kind of figure out what's working or what works best. One of the things that we always try to do is figure out where our best and most valuable client is coming from when we take on a client and when we're working with our business partners. And so, as you've mentioned, we've now had numerous awards from industry leaders like ClickFunnels. We've done over $200 million in 5 years in one of them, 102 million in 33 months. That was on the back of a book funnel, 50 million in 22 months, 67 million in 1 year. That's another book funnel. 10,000 people in a paid challenge every 5 weeks.
Wow.
Over 4 million recurring monthly revenue. That is on the back of a book funnel. So essentially, we just help companies, business owners, partners, and what it is scale their businesses. So yeah, I'd love to kind of like, I can dive in a little bit. I think that the one that we want to talk about mostly is 102 million in 33 months.
I'd like to do that. Before we even do that, maybe tell me, you have so many of these successful case studies of people that have really blown up their business on the back of a book funnel. What do you, like in a general sense, why do you think a book and a book funnel is, really like the point of the spear for these most successful campaigns that you guys have run?
I think that as far as books, it's just the credibility. It does allow, there are two things that allows you to do, but the credibility is that needle mover that is only with the book. I mean, you could have videos and things like this, but the book still holds weight. The other thing that allows you to do, which other SLO funnels allow you to do as well, but that combination of the credibility and the ability to offset that cost at the front end is what you can really do with a book funnel. So you can scale with a book funnel. You can figure out, you can offset that pricing with a well-optimized book funnel, paying for the book and a couple of other little products that you can add in there with it. And it gives you the ability to scale so that you're not so cash crunched on the front end,
Yeah.
right? You can reach more people. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, dive in, walk through what you feel like are some of the key steps in your proprietary process. And if it's okay, I might ask some questions along the way so I can understand a little bit better. I have a full notebook here. I'm ready to take notes myself.
I think that one of the biggest things that we do differently scaling, and you're going to use this with the book funnel, is to separate the front end from the back end of your funnel. So, we've shared this in high level masterminds where even the leaders are like, wait a minute, we're not really doing that. So we're looking at them separately. So if you really want to be able to scale, optimize your funnels and figure out what's going on in the business, It's best practice to separate those front and back ends. So, and your goal is always to have that healthy front end funnel. Now you're going to determine your metrics, like whether or not you need to break even on that funnel on day one. If you do, you're going to be probably not scaling quite as high. Like eventually it's going to cost more to acquire a customer, and you're going to have to rework your KPIs. But looking at that front end separately, meaning that front book and everything that you're placing in that funnel, like what is that doing aside from the back end of the business? You're ultimately, as you're scaling, going to look at the whole thing. But in order to optimize that front end funnel, that book funnel, looking at it separately is going to give you the indicators that you need to sort of make things change in there.
Give me some broad percentages if you can. So like once things start to scale, how much of the cost of acquisition are you trying to liquidate on the front end? 80%, 90%, 70%? What does that look like?
If you are at scale, we've had a controller come into a couple of our businesses. If you are really going for scale, you're looking at value, maybe you're going to sell the company down the line, or just, whatever it is that you're going to do. If we're looking at 0.70, you can scale as long as everything is healthy in the funnel. So meaning the front end and the back end, everything's working. You can also scale if you have a high ticket offers in the back. So I'm talking moderate. You don't even have to have anything extremely high. If you have high ticket offers, you can run that down further.
So what are those numbers? Like what are moderate, what are high? What would you consider for the back end?
So, I mean, with 70% on the front, you can run that to somebody that's only spending $1,000, in the funnel, as long as you're looking for continuity, you're looking for customers that are going to stick with you. You're going to be building that monthly continuity. That's perfectly fine. If you're, selling a $25,000 offer, you might come out of pocket and just offset it a bit. You might spend 3x, instead of spending $100 and breaking, and that being your average cart, you might spend 300 because you've got a 10%, 20% close on the back end, and you're able to do that. So just allows you to do so much differently.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's true for us. So that's interesting that you would
Okay.
hear. Like for our various book funnels, it'll cost us as much as $100 to acquire a book buyer of Publish, Promote, Profit. But our various programs range from 10 to $100,000. So there's a lot of opportunity on the back end there. Not so much with AI for us, because it's more continuity and a $1,497 offer initially. And we have a book funnel, and it's kind of interesting. That book is selling so well on Amazon. I mean, we're selling like 1,000 copies a month just organically on Amazon, which is driving traffic to us, which is kind of
Nice.
cool. And that's a whole nother story, right? That's not scalable, and that's a
Right.
different problem, or a different reward or exciting piece of it. But that's interesting. So even with a back end of only $1,000, you can create something that's really scalable at about a 70% front end of cost of acquisition.
Right. If you're looking at what they can purchase in funnel, and you're looking at, you've got some healthy continuity. The interesting thing is the 102 million in 33 months, that was all low ticket. There isn't anything high ticket on that. But
Wow.
it built a $4 million a month continuity business,
Uh,
over $6
what's the price
million a
point
month
on that
coming in.
on that continuity?
Continuity,
What?
gosh, there's a couple of different products in there, anywhere from $37 all the way up to maybe $97. And then there's the digital continuity program in there as well, that's 37 a month. So we've
Gotcha.
got a couple of things going in there, and it's just, yeah, those are the things that you can do. But obviously, if you're doing consulting, like with your book publishing, you can spend $300. You just have to figure out your own numbers, right? But and so then I'll get the question, well, if it's not at scale, if you're not breaking even at scale, then what's the point of adding it? It's because it also gets your name out there in a way that it's like establishing you as the expert. So that it's just a double. There's two things that are going on. You could just put a regular SLO there, but you aren't going to get that additional benefit. So, figuring that
Yeah.
out.
I love that. I have long talked about the benefit, the side benefits of that to people. I'm so glad you brought that up because very few people that I've talked to have really brought that up. I mean, I was completely unknown in this space and have developed hundreds of thousands of followers on various social accounts without really creating any content whatsoever. It's all been through my funnels that have run, and we've sold tens of thousands of copies of my books through my funnels and tens of thousands of copies through Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other places. And so without creating any content, which is honestly has been a mistake. I should have been at least creating some organic content along the way. But I'm so glad you mentioned that because that is such a great side benefit because people will find you and come to you at completely unrelated to the book funnel simply because of the credibility that you've built. That's awesome.
We've seen this happen again and again. Someone will find them day one, kind of on YouTube or somewhere, buy a book because they had the book and then bypass all of their things and buy the $30,000 program. And it's
Yes.
simply because they're just getting into this industry. In this industry, the marketing, we think all these things like, oh, everybody knows this, but the general population isn't really, they're still getting educated with it. So we still see this happening all the time. Very, very
Yeah.
smart people that are coming from different industries, real estate or technology or whatever it is that they're coming from. They're seeing that book. They're still feeling that that's the credible person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very important. Another thing that we do inside the funnel, just on that front end of the funnels, we're always using the rule of 5 and like 10 if possible. And all that means is that on that first visit to the funnel, once you figure out what your cost to acquire a customer is, once you figure out that CPA, have a minimum of 5 times that, or 10 if possible, amount of products that they can buy on their first visit. So for example, Rob, if you're having like a $100 CPA, make sure that they can buy $500 worth of stuff on their very, very first visit. Or, and if you can creep that up to 10, that's great too. That'll give you, at least that really firm foundation of getting that book funnel started off in a good way. So you can kind of creep up those average parts.
I
So
love that. I
that.
I have never heard that said. I have never heard that. I
That's
have never heard somebody directly say rule of 5 or 10, meaning that 5x your cost of acquisition or as much as 10x your cost of acquisition. Now I would like your opinion on this, and thank you for sharing that. That's a really great gem. I've seen this personally, but then I've seen it sometimes work well and sometimes not, and that is oftentimes the lower level initial upsells are on the front end, like the bumps, $27, $17, $47. And then as you get further through the funnel, the more expensive things are. Not recently, but over the last few years, we've adjusted that because oftentimes people aren't even seeing the last page of the funnel in some cases because they're just Xing out after the first upsell or whatever. Can you speak to like what your rule of thumb is when it comes to how you architect the funnel out as far as price points?
Ours do follow that a little. We always keep in mind that the upsell number one is going to be responsible for most, for most of the revenue, right?
Yeah.
So most of the revenue that's in that average order value or average cart value, that's going to be an upsell one. So if you have something really super important, I mean, right there in upsell one, you can put that. We can, you can toy around with moving that around, but it is a concern. You can make sure that you put the no thanks buttons on there, like no thanks, I don't need this, so that you can hopefully get them to the next page. I do know that people will drop off, they'll just X out of the page without even clicking the no thanks, but that's where we're really looking at that. We're always making sure also that no matter what product it is that's on there or what stage, everything has to stand alone, meaning that yes, you're building on it and you're saying like, hey, you just made the best purchase of your life. You just did all of these things. Now, how would you like it if I were to, show you this or take you deeper over here? It has to be another VSL. It has to be another, maybe 9 minute, but usually what we're seeing like 13, 15 minute VSL
Wow.
starting all over. through the sales process, because if you just rely on that first sale, you're going to lose a lot of sales. It's a fine balance. I see it sometimes to where you can put those 3 to 5 if you can get them swiftly through the sales process. But if you're really going in again for something for them to buy, just remember that no matter what it is and no matter what's happened before, here you are again at a brand new product, brand new
Yeah.
reason I need to buy it.
Yeah. So VSL's 13 to 15 minutes long for a 20, 30, $40 upsell.
Maybe not for $20 to $30, but once we get into our upsells, so if we're selling, our first upsells, we're usually, let me see here, I've got some things written down. We're usually, anywhere from like, I would say 47 would be our lowest one, but we're looking
Lowest.
at like 97, 197, something like this.
Gotcha.
Don't always have to do a 13 to 15. You can try other things, but we've seen that a 13 to 15, because they're definitely not going to listen to the whole thing, but it takes them through the process and it just gives them that ability. Like if you're just thinking of a full on VSL as opposed to, and you can make it a mini VSL, but as opposed to just relying on that for like, oh, they bought my book. They bought my book, they bought a couple of upsells. They're going to want this too. This makes sense. Like it's take them through it a little bit more because they did only buy a book. And a book is just, it's seen as something like, hey, I can get this book and I can go through it. It's on my own. It's easy. It's a low cost. So now we've got to switch them into, let's go deeper with me. So it can be a little bit of a lift on that page too.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure you're all over the place with this, but is there any like continuity of like what you're seeing cost of acquisition in a book funnel, like in the coaching space or in the self-improvement space? Like, does it run like, okay, in the self-improvement space, it's going to be $75 cost of acquisition or something like that? Can you speak to that or at all, or is it all over the place?
It is all over the place, but we always just come in with saying, hey, it's going to cost us $100. Like, this is where we're starting, guys. This is what we think is going to happen. And then we might be pleasantly surprised, like in the supplement space, where it's down a little bit less than that. And then we might be like, oh, it's a little bit more than that over here, like, 120 as a consultant, or maybe, 80, 90. But we always come in with that $100. And it does seem to be something where a lot of people land. It's almost
Yeah.
like the ad gods are just there
Yeah.
saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is what,
They know how much money they
but
want to get from
yeah,
us.
right.
Good.
So
Good.
that's where we're at. Another thing that we see, that some work that we see that could be done is like, once you get that funnel going, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to get my funnel, got to launch it, got to get it out there. And they put all of this work into the pre-launch and into the pre-funnel, but that's great because it should be professional and amazing before you put it out there. But the work really happens afterwards, right? So it's like that optimization. Okay, what happens when they're hitting the page? What happens when they get to the bumps, to the upsells? Like, are they working? And then ultimately, what's happening 30 days down the line, 60, 90. So it is a process, but it's just important to continually optimize and take a look at what that is, as opposed to just sort of letting it ride. So we try to look at things depending upon what they are. We try to establish percentages. So we'll say, well, number one, we're definitely not looking at things every single day, because there are a
Yeah.
lot of you are looking at it, but you're not gauging it and making any decisions. But looking at things like, okay, what's happening over the last 7 days? What's happening over the last 14 days? And just having indicators that are like, you know what, this does seem to be trending downward by X. Let's take a look at this particular, product or page or offer. So it's just important to make sure that you're always looking at what's going on there and
Yeah.
before you start filling it on the back end, like down the line.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That is, for those that are listening, for me, that's the hardest part. And I think for a lot of people that build funnels and that sort of thing, because you put so much time and energy and effort into it, initially with videos and with what upsells there are. And when it starts to work, especially when there's a really high ticket thing on the back end, it can work just okay. and you're still making plenty of money. But if you just optimized it, right? If you just took the time and energy and effort to look at all the things that you're talking about, man, it could be a game changer. So I appreciate that. And that's also like a knife in my heart. I'm like, yeah, I don't do that.
I mean, and you're looking at everything, right? Not just the funnel, but the emails. I mean, we've come
Right.
down, like we've combed through different accounts and different businesses and found, okay, your abandoned cart emails not going out for 30 minutes. Why? Or, all of these different things. So just different pieces to the funnel itself or to the campaign itself, just always making sure, what is that little, what's happening here? What's the customer experience? And putting yourself in the shoes of that person that's first buying the book and how can you help? It's a fine line. Some people buy a book and then they go through the funnel with all the bumps and upsells and downsells and things, and they're like, oh my gosh, forget it. Unhappy I bought this book. But if you can change it to how could you make them speed up their process, make their life easier? Hey, we know you want this result, and kind of look at that funnel in that way.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just continue
Good.
on.
Good. Um, I don't want to interrupt the process you're taking us through if there are more pieces, but I do have some questions along the way. So, you know, I'm really intrigued by this lower ticket, having a scalable, successful funnel with only $1,000 back end versus it needing to be 15,000, 20,000, et cetera. Of course, the assumption is on anything that's 15,000, 20,000, basically that's a book a call, right? You're just sending them because that purchase needs to be made, via consultation and discussion, and you're sending calls to the sales team. At least that's my assumption. I don't think anybody's clicking a button to pay 15,000 bucks. But at what point would you say, what price point would you say through the funnels that you've seen, we have to send them to book a call versus they can click a button for the $1,000 thing? Or maybe even the $1,000 thing, they're not clicking a button. I don't know. Like what's that look like?
No, yeah. I think it's just kind of like how it has always been, like about $1,000 to $3,000. They could probably do that. 1,000 probably in funnel on that first. 2 to 3, you're probably going to want kind of like a webinar masterclass type of thing. But we are selling a lot of high items on it in challenges now. So if you want that high ticket item without a sales team, you can do that in challenges now too. So we might have book funnel on the front, kind of feeding them through, taking them into a challenge and selling a high ticket offer without a sales call. And those can be, 3,000 and up and without issues. We are
Gotcha.
seeing happen. But yes, you're right. Like not everybody's gonna just click and buy $3,000 in the funnel. The one that I was talking about specifically for 102, 33 months of the book funnel is a lower ticket with a huge focus on continuity and renewal subscription products. So we're talking about building, buyers lists basically, so that that company can prep to sell, or is just really strong in that. I mean, when we're putting book funnels on the front, they're buying in the front, we're creating huge lists of buyers instead of lists of people that are just raising their hands that they might want something free. And with that company and several of the companies, just millions of actual buyers. So the ability to just have a continuity every single month, run as much traffic as you want to run. And then anytime that you want to make an offer, make a new masterclass or anything new, pull $1 million out of your list at whenever you'd like. It's just kind of like,
Wow.
okay, we're going to pull this lever because we're
Yeah.
going to do this right now.
Yeah,
So
because you have 2 million buyers that
yeah,
have expressed, enough interest to pull out their credit card and put the digits in and say they want this thing. And so, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that
So we're
is
really
that is
at
really
that,
powerful.
really building continuity, really building up, movement based companies, products, those type of things. Like if you've got that really, that movement message.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Good. Other key things that you want to discuss in the process, or is that, mainly the stuff that comes to mind for you?
That's mainly the stuff. Yeah, that's mainly it. Focusing on that front end. I think making sure that you've got enough in that front end funnel to where you guys can, you can do 5 or 10x, like that number right there is huge. Going through some things here, split testing. Once you know that your message is working on your book and your book funnel itself, your ads, like once you know it's working, then that's when we'll really shift the focus and go over to testing like the products and making sure that they're in the right places and they're converting properly. And then, keeping in mind, I did want to make sure that I covered that, keeping in mind that upsell one. So it was interesting that you asked about it. Like that is our, that's going to bring in 20% or more of that average order value. So that's kind of like the one to really do the most with. And then, yeah, I mean, keep in mind that like with client acquisition, like paid ads now and scaling, like you're going to be looking at the overall ROAS. A few years ago, we could get 3 to 10 ROAS on day one at scale. I'm sure you know that. Now you can still get 3 ROAS on day one if you're running a tiny bit of traffic, but if you're driving a ton of volume, if you're really scaling, once you move into scaling, it's just a different game. You need to start looking at how long it takes you to break even with ad spend monetization windows. It could be 7 days, 14 days, 21, 30. If you're spending millions of dollars on traffic. So it shifts from what are the ROAS? I need 3x ROAS on the front to how much is a lead worth in 30, 60, 90 days. So ultimately, how much revenue do you want? As your ROAS is definitely going to go down at scale, but your revenue for the company could still go up. So it's just a matter of, like Dan Kennedy said, whoever pays the most, whoever's willing to pay the most for the person. So
Yes. Well, that's immediately what came to my mind, right? I mean, of course, whoever can afford to pay the most to acquire a customer wins, period. And so that just means that you can wait longer to actually get a return on that investment. There are too many people, honestly, that, are needing to make money on their ads on day one, and that just almost immediately exempts them from being able to use paid advertising. It's like, sorry, it doesn't work that way, right? I mean, we're long past the days of 5-cent clicks on Google.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's amazing at the high level entrepreneurs and business owners that I'm come across, run into, and become even friends with that are still of this mindset that it's too much, or they want to have some fixed number that is based on history. Frankly, like 3 years ago. So we're like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that just doesn't work anymore, and it just means that we need to be better, right? I mean it just means that we need to do a better job on delivering real value for people and really being able to express that value so that they want the next thing from us. They fall in love with us. They want the upsell or the high ticket thing or whatever that is. And so I really respect what you do. I mean, what you do is of tremendous value and service to people. It is not easy to do. There are not many agencies, honestly, that I was going to say the gift, but it might be more the grit. Like because you gotta really just dive into. You got to know what you're doing, and you are gifted in that. But you got to really dive in and know where to dive in hard to make things work, as you said. So, in the past, you're still very exclusive to work with because when it comes to the agency model and your partnership model, that's one thing. But you mentioned you're doing something new. You're going to start a coaching program to help people to do this themselves, or maybe even do it for others. You want to talk for a moment about that, and we'll give them a link to it for anybody that's interested as well.
Yeah, for sure. We have a coaching program that we're finishing the touches on right now, and a course that we're finishing the touches on. So for those that still can't get into the coaching program, they can now buy a course, and it's going to talk not only about book funnels, but just deep, like high level marketing. So we're looking at, how to market, how to get your message, how to create a message that is worthy of clicks, all of those type of things. So everything from like low ticket, high ticket offers, just everything. So we're going to package we're pulling off some pieces that we do with our high-end clients that we know works and gets us results. And we're just putting it into the consulting program, into the course. So we're hoping to reach a lot more people that way.
Killer. Well, I think it's going to help a ton of people, and we're going to talk more about some various things as well. But we'll give a link to everybody. You also have a main website that they can go to as well, right? Should we give them that link also, or not worry about that? We'll just give them a URL in the show notes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, URL in the show notes is probably best because they're just going to pop onto a waiting list. Our main website, says everybody, it says that we're full. So
Love it.
it's
Love
like,
it.
hey, thanks for stopping by. But if you
Thanks
pop
for
on,
stopping by. We don't have anything to sell you.
right. So if you do
Hear
go
all
to
these people, I want to buy something, Alisha. I want to buy from you. You're like, no, I'm not selling you anything.
it's terrible. It says, hey, thanks for stopping by. We're booked. But I want to help more people, and we will, those high level clients and people that are really scaling their business, we are helping them. We are, we do have room for some of those situations, but where we can help, I think the most is going to be in our new course and program. So if you pop on that wait list, then you'll be good.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for this. Very, very helpful. I have a page of notes. I loved, the ability to go deep, the rule of 5 or 10. Very, very good. The things you shared about 70% of front end, very, very helpful. Even successfully scaling with only $1,000 back end seems crazy to me, but very exciting. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of the Bestseller Secrets podcast. We'll get this out to everybody and hopefully help a ton of folks.
All right. Thank you so much.
Love it.